2, 1. Okay. Well, hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us on Coffee with the Missionary. We're so excited tonight.
So excited.
We're going to be talking with really special guests ourselves.
Holler! You guys can just log off now.
So you know us as the hosts, Noah and Melanie Lane. So we talk a lot about coffee with a missionary, and we host other missionaries. But tonight we have we decided, you know what?
We have the privilege.
We have the privilege. Welcome, viewers. But we have the privilege tonight of just kind of introducing ourselves a little bit more. And we're so excited about talking about adoption, talking about missions in Mexico, and also interacting with you as you listen and watch. So we encourage you to give your comments, give your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. If it's your first time watching, we'd love for you to comment where you're watching from, and love to get you involved in that way. Anything to say, Ben?
I should. I usually do. Talked a lot today.
That's right. Well, yeah. So we Noah and Melanie Lane, we're missionaries headed to Mexico. We have not been on the field in Mexico yet, but we are fully appointed missionaries, and we both have had experience taking short term trips to Mexico, but we still haven't been on the field yet. But we're excited to talk a little bit about missions calling, talk a little bit about adoption. Today was a really exciting day for us in terms of that.
Yeah, we adopted officially our little boy. So his name is Jesse. Oh my goodness, I almost said his other last name, Jesse Bennett Lane. He is officially a Lane as of today. So we are super jazzed. So if might be why I feel a little tired, but
yeah. I want to say hi to Roy Cruz,
hey, Roy.
Who's watching from Heredia, Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Mel's been to Costa Rica. Mel, you were there for a year.
Yeah. My parents were missionaries, so we spent a year there learning Spanish.
And you were at Cincel. And what was your favorite part about Costa Rica?
Oh man, the food, probably food. Not the monkeys. They could take a hike. But they have these little things called momonchinos, and they're like those little red spiky balls, and you split it open, and they're like the white juicy. Oh, it's amazing. And here, when I came back, I found them in New York City, one for $1. And I was like, should I do it? Because there you get a massive bag on the side of the road for about $4. So I bought it. I did it because I wasn't in Costa Rica. So,
well, if you're just joining us, we have the special privilege tonight of just talking with ourselves and interviewing ourselves. But
we don't want this to be boring for you guys. We don't want this to be just us yapping our trap. So we invite you guys to ask questions along the way to, shoot out some things. So. And
we have this amazing thing. Okay?
Well, it is happening.
So this right here is what we like to call a spinning wheel. Okay. And in our spinning wheel, as we spin the wheel, whatever it lands on, it determines what kind of question we're going to be asking. So you see the red here. The red is a serious question. The gray is a somewhat controversial question. The yellow is a silly question. The blue is
for you guys to answer, and the green is like a poll. So
okay, wonderful. So we're going to be spinning this and seeing what we're going to do. So let's do that. And whatever the top one is, it looks like it's green.
Suspense is killing me. So we're starting with a poll.
Green.
We don't want to start with a poll.
We can't do that yet.
We make our own rules here. Okay. So we're going to spin again.
All right, let's spin again.
It's too early in the relationship.
All right, we have
controversial question.
We're starting off. Wait, it kind of bounced back.
But it was gray.
Controversial question. Here we go. Controversial question number 1. It says, oh my goodness, I ripped it. Okay. Should you open Christmas presents on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day?
So we have our own opinions about this, but we need your comments to know what you think. Do you open up your presents on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? Because this lovely gentleman sitting next to me seems to think.
Well, so here the day, it's Christmas Eve.
No,
Here's
it's
the
not.
deal, folks. In my family, we grew up opening every single present on Christmas Eve.
Has anyone else done that? We open pajamas. Like
Comment in, please. We'll get a poll on this, but we opened presents on Christmas Eve. We went to church because we were good Christians. My dad was pastor, and so we were always at a Christmas Eve service, candlelight.
Wait, are you saying that in order to be a good Christian, you have to go to church on Christmas Eve?
That we're not going there right now.
Controversial question.
Ooh, we have okay.
Christmas
Brandy
Day,
says one present. Thank you, Brandy. She says one present Christmas Eve, the rest on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Carolyn says Christmas Day.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Or before,
Christmas Day or before, if no one's watching. Thank you, Roy. Yeah, so we always did Christmas Eve, and it was awesome because we got it all out of the way, and then on Christmas Day we got to just play with our toys. We weren't like worried about if we got to sleep in. It was awesome.
Now I'm with Amber on this one. How do I get that up there? There you go. Yes. See? Patience, grasshopper. Patience. There's nothing to get out of. That's like saying, you know what? I'm really hungry on Thanksgiving Eve. I'm just going to have Thanksgiving dinner tonight. And tomorrow I can just enjoy feeling full. I just don't understand. So.
Oh, my goodness. Well, welcome. If you're just watching, Noah and Melanie Lane. Yep. You probably see us usually as the hosts of Coffee with a Missionary. And tonight we wanted to just take some time for you to get to know us a little bit. We are missionaries ourselves, fully appointed with the Sons of God. We're on our way to Mexico. We're going to a state called Oaxaca. I'm going to throw up a map here. Oaxaca, Mexico. You can see it's the green little square down there.
Square.
The square that says Oaxaca, and then the
green section.
Actual state is not square, but southwest Mexico. In the state of Oaxaca, there are numerous indigenous groups, and there are other LAC missionaries that have paved the way in Oaxaca and are still there. Ephraim Figueroa and Catherine the Figueroa family is there. Shout out to them. Also, Mike and Ilona Hattinger, who were there for a long time, and other missionaries who are now no longer in Mexico, but paving the way, and there's lots of work to be done among the indigenous groups there.
Yeah. So we have been fully funded now for over a year, probably. So we are currently living in New Jersey. And like Noah said, we are career missionaries. The reason that we haven't left yet is because we are waiting for the adoptions of both of our children, which, little fun update, we are now waiting for the adoption of one of our children because one was just recently adopted today. He is officially Elaine.
Officially Elaine. Here we have a picture. This is little Jesse. Jesse Lane.
He's 9 months old.
Little Jesse is 9 months. He's been in our home since he was born. We just adopted him today.
Yep.
Real quick, I do want to answer your question, Roy, though. We do know Lloyd. We haven't met them personally, but we've communicated with them. We know they're in Chihuahua there. So wonderful. So
just for you guys watching, we want you to throw out any questions. Our first daughter that we have right now is through foster care. That's the one that we're waiting to officially adopt to leave for Mexico. We've been foster parents for about 3 years. And tonight we just really want to get into kind of the nitty gritties of our story about how God led us to missions. Well, foster care, then missions, and how they're both weaved together right now. And he's just writing the coolest story. Thank you, Carolyn, for the congratulations, guys. He is a cutie. But we just really want you guys, if you have any questions about how it works or, just comments that you'd like to make, we would love to answer them. So we're going to be talking, but please throw up your questions. So
before we get further into adoption, back to our wheel.
Oh, boy.
Okay, here we go. What?
Just one more.
Oh, what are you talking about?
No, one more. I want to spin this time, though.
Okay.
I feel like Vanna, except I have black hair.
All right,
red.
It's a red one. This is a serious one.
So these are serious
folks.
questions.
And this question says, what made you want to adopt? So perfect.
Great segue.
Perfect segue. So
let's start off with another question.
Yes.
Noah, did you always want to adopt?
Very good question, babe. So I grew up like most people, not knowing, not thinking about adoption, not really knowing too many families who had adopted, and I think, first of all, as the man that I am and I was, I didn't think a whole lot about marriage and kids. I thought about getting married one day. I didn't think too deeply about it. Um, but also didn't really think about adoption. And so when we got married, Mel will tell a little bit about her story with adoption. But when we got married, we tried to have kids for about 3 years. And then just God led us on this adoption route, and Mel kind of started talking about it more. And for me, when I first approached it, I was resistant, I guess. Just because I was like, I said the saying, you know what? I want my own kids. I want my own kids. I don't want whatever. It wasn't like I had, like I said, it wasn't like I had actually thought about it. But that was my initial reaction, and I knew it was something that was on Mel's heart, and so we really had to pray about it, and we knew we had to be on the same page. And really, it was from there that God, I can honestly say that God changed my heart. It was just in a snap, and really what it was is from the scripture, Ephesians 2, that says, that God adopted us, and we've been adopted into His family. And it's like, listen, if it's good enough for God, it's good enough for me. I mean, that's a horrible way of putting it because it's way more profound than that. Yeah. So that was what changed my heart. But why don't you share a little bit about your...
Yeah, real quick. I just want to
I'll do it.
Some of these comments down here. But Amanda, thank you for the congrats. And that's awesome that you're going to be leaving soon for El Salvador. Congrats to you. I hope you get everything done. You're just right across the bridge from us. We're over in Marlton in New Jersey. So like Noah had said, for me, I'd always wanted to adopt. When I was 8 years old, I remember hearing the word adopt, I think for the first time. I asked my mom what it was, and I just knew that's what I wanted to do. You don't think about things as an 8-year-old in the context of like, I hope my husband wants to do it too. That's what I want to do. So it was actually interesting in our premarital counseling, a question had come up that was like, what if you can't get pregnant? And what will you do? How will you go about that? And I just remember thinking, well, that's a good question. Like I want to adopt. That's kind of probably what started the question initially for us, but I never thought I would be the girl to deal with that. I'd been a nanny my whole life. I loved kids. I wanted to be missionary with children. And so I just kind of didn't think like, well, God obviously gave me this desire. He won't not enable me to have children. So fast forward now to the 3 years of trying and not happening. And, I think my desire just, to answer the question is just that it came from Jesus. Like I was just born with it and I'm very grateful for it. When we couldn't have kids, I was really kind of okay with that. It was a struggle for sure, but not like some women go through, which I'm grateful for. But I just really, really, really wanted to adopt. I don't know. I was excited about the prospect of being able to care for children that didn't have a home, that needed somebody, that they already existed. They were already here. And so that really led for us into the, okay, well, what now? Because since Noah and I have known each other, I was 5 when I felt called to missions. He was 13. So we've known that we wanted to do missions, and we felt that the Lord was telling us missions is coming soon. So adoption was tricky to figure out because we knew that it was expensive. We knew all this stuff. So that kind of led us down the path of, okay, what are our next steps if we are going to adopt?
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, Noah and Melanie Lane here. We are the hosts of Coffee with a Missionary, and we're usually hosting and then talking with someone else. But tonight we wanted to take some time, just introduce ourselves. We are missionaries with the Assemblies of God. We are headed to Mexico, and we are going to a state called Oaxaca. But we also are in the midst of adoption and foster care while we're here, and we are. Currently, actually, just today, we celebrated the adoption of our son. So
here's one more photo from this morning that we just love. Is there a way to make it full screen? So this is all of our friends and family with us today at the courthouse with the judge behind us all. And there's a blanket in the front that says, every good and perfect gift is from above that my sister-in-law had bought for me at Jesse's shower. And it's just true. You can take off. At the adoption party today, we were just able to share with everybody. Jesse has just been such a gift to our family. He was a gift that we didn't ask for.
Yeah.
His story is so insanely crazy about how God literally just brought him into our life. And so Jesse actually means gift. And he is just a beautiful little piece of craziness because he's nuts.
I just want to say hi, Mike. Hi, Mike Hattinger. Thank you for the good feedback there. I'm glad it was coming through clear there. And no, just to piggyback off of that, just to kind of tell the overall story. And Mel, you had mentioned it before, but just that we are fully funded. We're ready to go to the field, and we currently have the stateside assignment because we are waiting for the adoption of our daughter as well as our son, who is today.
Our daughter's 2.
And our daughter's 2, and we've been fostering her since she was born. And while we were itinerating, while we were raising funds to go to Mexico, we were also fostering this little baby girl. And so she traveled with us all the way to every service and across states.
So this is my favorite part, is that we were doing foster care for about 2 years before we became missionaries. Our 3 previous placements we got reunified with families, and we were kind of like in a more broken place, but the Lord had led us to full-time missions. And so we were on that train. We had about 3 months of an empty home. We decided to continue doing foster care. Well, no, actually we didn't. We decided to not do foster care, but to open our home for just an adoption only case, that if it was like this miracle thing, yada, yada. So we get this phone call. They're like, hey, we've got a little baby girl. We're not allowed to say her name, by the way. So we're going to call her baby A. And she's completely healthy. She was born on Sunday. This was Tuesday. So she was 36 hours old when we got her. And they were like, what do you think? And we're like, well, how much time do we have to think about it? And they're like, an hour. So we prayed. We just felt peace. We said yes. And so that was on Tuesday. So that next Sunday, we show up at a church, Pastor Tim Harris, right?
Yep.
What city are they in?
In Shrewsbury, New Jersey.
Shrewsbury, New Jersey. We show up, and Pastor Tim is like, did I miss something? And we're like,
his look like just captured. He was like, wait, am I supposed to know something? Wait, but you don't look pregnant. Wait, what happened? But I didn't know what.
Yeah, we're like, we got her Tuesday. And he's like, I don't even know what that means. We'll talk later. Yeah. And so from that point on, though, she was just like the best. She was like so loved by every single church. She was awesome. She's like the most extroverted kid you'll ever meet. But she's just been a joy. Thank you, Carolyn. Want to throw that up there? Yeah, sure. Just praying for a speedy process. And we really appreciate those prayers. For sure, the last 2 years with baby A have been crazy. They've been emotional. That's been a roller coaster. But I think Noah and I can confidently say that we are different people than when we started this journey. God has beat us to the core in the best way possible. That whole furnace thing is true.
Yeah, and really, what I kind of wanted to bring it to was because today we celebrated the adoption of our son, Jesse, and which was just an absolute miracle because we came up to the point where we were just about done raising our budget, and but we were waiting for our daughter and wondering if this process was going to be complete or how much longer it was. And we realized, okay, we're not going to be able to head to the field in 1 month. So we need to talk to our leadership. We need to figure out the next step, and they worked with us, and they paved the way and gave us an assignment and things like this. But it was literally within like 2 weeks that a friend of ours contacted us and said, "Hey," and they didn't know about the timeline stuff. They just knew that we had a heart for adoption. They said, "Hey." There's a little boy. He's due in middle of February, and he, would you be willing to adopt him? And
we're both literally standing there like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Like there was no sense of fear or scared or whatever, but we were like, look, we feel like someone's saying, here's $40,000. Do you want it? And we're like, we need to pray about it. Who prays about that? But we just knew with everything between our daughter and just life, we were like, can we just have a week and pray about it just to make sure? And it was really crazy because, again, like, as if you've been listening from the beginning, my desire has always been to adopt. Like, I've always wanted to do that. But we left that building that day after talking to this couple, and I freaked out. I had legitimate fear for the next couple of days. Fear that I wasn't prepared to share my loves, because at this time, so baby A and Jesse are only 17 months apart. So I wasn't sure that I was ready yet to share my baby girl with another baby. But the biggest thing was I felt like it was a game that God was playing. It felt like Jesse was going to be a consolation prize, because at this time, baby A's case was definitely not in a necessarily healthy spot. Like, it was still really dicey if she was going to go back with family, if she was going to stay with us. And I felt like it was going to be like God saying, well, here's this other baby. I'm going to actually take baby A away from you, but you'll have him, so you'll be okay. And I know that's like completely wrong now, but in the moment, that's really just how I felt. And I was just overwhelmed with a lot of that stuff. And so throughout the next week or so, God really beat into my mind. He's like, hey, I am not a God of mind games. I don't do that. That's not how I work. You can trust me. I just give good gifts. And so that's the whole thing. Like, because we didn't ask for Jesse, I felt like it was almost like a trick. Like, what's the catch? And God was like, I don't play catch. I give gifts to my kids that are good. And I love you. Receive this gift. And so we obviously said yes. And here we are. And it's just,
yeah. And amazingly, shout out to Diane Laws. Hi, Diane.
Hi,
Thanks
Diane.
for jumping on. But Diane is a missionary to Micronesia, and she's from the New Jersey district here, and a close friend. And so she was able to be there with us today in the courtroom and celebrate Jesse's adoption. So thank you, Diane, and thanks for saying hi here. And Mike, this is so cool. Thanks for sharing this. There's a new initiative in the Ohio Assemblies of God Network to adopt 15,000 available children in Ohio. Praise God.
And that's insane, guys. So like, if you're even remotely thinking about adoption or foster care, you feel like maybe not now, at some point, 15,000 available children in Ohio alone.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many children out there that need homes. And I feel like this process has definitely opened Noah and mine eyes. I don't know how to say that. Noah and mine and Noah's eyes.
Noah's and mine.
Noah's and my eyes to just the need and how the church needs to fill that need, quite frankly. And so we're still learning. We're not like these adoption experts. We're not these people that are here to like beat you with a stick and say, if you don't adopt, you don't care. But we're just seeing the need and just realizing there's a lot of different ways to be involved in adoption.
And let me just say this too, and I feel like this, I should say this, that kind of a comparison between missions calling and work and adoption, just in this one sense, which is a lot of times we hear the statistics about unreached people groups. We hear the statistics about lost people in countries around the world. And so we think, oh, that should be enough. There's a need. Why won't I go and just fill that need? And if we don't feel that calling, or if we're not sure, then we feel guilty and say, well, I must not be that spiritual. I must not hear from God. Why don't I just want to jump up and go fill his need? And same thing with adoption and foster care. Especially there's been a push, which has been amazing, which has said, hey, if all the churches in the U.S. each church just chose one adoptive child, we would wipe out all the kids in foster care and adoption. And that's true. And so then you think, okay, well, why don't I just jump in and do it right now? Let's do it and let's solve the problem. And then you feel guilty when you're not. So, there's realities and that is true, the need that are out there. But listening to the voice of the Spirit, because it's hard and it's a long process. And, we are walking through it, and God has used us, but we also had to say no to some of those kids. We also have had a really, really difficult time, and it's been hard. And yes, it's worth it 100%. And yes, God doesn't guarantee us an easy life, but it is difficult. So I don't want to diminish it and say, come on, just get out there and do it. What's the big deal? No, it's a massive deal. And you need to be led by the Holy Spirit of God. But if you don't genuinely pray and allow God to speak to you, and be open, I think that's where the issue comes in.
Yeah. So that's that's like few pieces of a little bit of our story. Right now where we're at with baby A is they have something called a termination trial. So once a child has been in foster care for a little bit, they need to terminate parental rights. And so we are finally at that point. We feel like we're finally living in the month that we've been waiting for 2 years. So she's already had trial to number 1, and we're waiting for a second one on December 17th. So if you guys would be praying, that would be awesome. And so hopefully soon we'll be celebrating another adoption. But God has been so insanely faithful. And I think, the quote from Elizabeth Elliot keeps popping back into my head, and I'm not going to get it exactly. But she says something along the lines of like, God's more interested in making you holy than in getting a job done. And sometimes that bothers me because kind of like what Noah just said, it's like, well, there's like, I can get a little bit like, oh my gosh, there's so many children that need to be adopted and we can't take them all in. It even frustrated me sometimes that we can only take one in at a time and all this stuff. But God's main purpose that I'm learning is, yes, obedience to what he's asking you to do, but he's much more interested in making you like him than he is in filling your resume and what you're doing for him, And I think that's been the hardest and best thing about the last 2 years is that God has really kind of kept us like sitting ducks in New Jersey when we just want to get to Mexico. We want to take our daughter. We want to get out of here. We want to, now take our son too, and just go do things and be the missionaries that we wanted to be since we were so young. And God's like, I'm doing stuff. You need to be patient. And so just as a word of encouragement to you guys, this whole waiting period is not just a way to buy time. It's genuinely its own season. It's its own period, and it's cool.
And it's LAC's theme this whole fall season heading into the end of the year has been letting go. Yeah. And what is God asking you to let go of, and all the different ways that we have to let go. And really for us, it's been letting go of our timeline and letting go of our control of the call of God. Yeah. God has called us to Mexico. God has called us to adopt. God has called us to a number of other things, and things like this. And we have to take steps in faith. We applied to missions. We raised our budget. We're preparing to learn Spanish. We're getting involved. We're learning. We're educating ourselves. We're developing relationships. We're doing everything like that. But God is the one who has to fulfill that call in his timing. And all the pieces of our life, he's the one who has to fill. So we do our part, and we have to let go of the part that God does and really trust it. And that's been a journey for us, the ups and downs of, okay, why aren't we there yet? Are we ever going to get there? Is God really calling us? Maybe he doesn't really want us there and all that stuff. But when we let go, then God's call becomes what it actually is, which is his calling. Yeah. And it's his, he owns it. It's not ours to take over once he calls you to something, he's in charge of it and he determines how it goes, Yeah. So we've preached enough. We want to get back to our silly selves, our little thing here. We're not opposed to, we're not opposed to being serious, but we do want to spin the wheel. And guys, feel free, like I said, to throw in some questions to, anything you got. All right. So we've got no third party to bounce things off of. Help a brother and sister out, Yeah. Feel free to ask any question, missions, adoption, anything. So this says, can you read it? Yes. So this is a poll for you. Okay. For you who are watching and listening, please comment in. It says, have you ever thought about doing adoption or foster care? So if you're watching, go ahead and just comment in. It's kind of an informal poll here. Yes or no? Yes or no? Have you ever thought about doing adoption or foster care? And if it's been, wherever you are on that, we'd love to get your feedback and love to hear from you about that. Let's do one more. So while you're doing that, absolutely. One more. I'm going to spin this time. All right. Spirit fingers. What's it going to be? I don't know. Blank.
There you go.
Wow, she's just choosing them at this point. Come on, folks.
All right. So yellow is silly. So do you want to do it or you want me to do it?
Well, you're asking
I'm asking the questions. He's giving the answers. All right. So do you have your phone?
I do.
I need a timer. In 45 seconds, Noah Bear, Noah Boo.
45 seconds.
You need to. So here's a fun fact about Noah. When he was in college, mind you, not 9 or 10, but college.
This is embarrassing.
He was a part of a relay race where he was forced to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Super normal, right? He didn't know the words. None. Bless his heart.
Didn't know the words.
So this should be fun.
Because I grew up in an extremely Christian home. Shout out to mom and dad.
Stop saying extremely Christian. Extremely
Christian. There's no other way to say it. Okay. I would use the word more Christian than you. And anyone else who's listening who listened to that awful Rudolph.
All right.
Rudolph's not a real character. Okay.
And we've gone too far. All right. So he needs to list the 12 days of Christmas without singing, which is super hard to do in 45 seconds.
All right.
On your mark, get set, go.
Okay.
In order.
What? A partridge in a pear tree. 2 turtle doves. 3 French hens.
There, I think they were Spanish, but go ahead.
4 calling birds. 5 golden rings. 6 geese a-laying. 7 swans a-swimming.
Aww.
8 maids a-milking. 9 ladies dancing. 10 pipers piping. 10.
Are you serious?
So close.
You got stuck at 10.
So close. All right,
But
what
hey,
was it? I mean, you're supposed to know. I'm talking to you. Like,
yeah,
you
9
know.
ladies dancing, 10 lords a leaping, 11 pipers piping, 12. I don't know them talking.
12
lords a leaping, 11 pipers piping, 10.
No.
9 ladies dancing. Can someone help us?
8 swans. Okay.
9 ladies dancing, 10
12.
lords a leaping, 12 drummers drumming, 11 lords a leaping.
No, yeah, you change it every time you talk about it. No, it's 5 maids of milking, 6 golden rings. No, I know it.
Okay.
It's 10.
Simmer down there.
All right, we need another controversial one here.
Another one? No.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. Okay, one more, no more. That's what we tell our daughter. One more, no more. One more, mama. Well, it's close enough. We need to Jimmy rig this. I don't know how Wheel of Fortune does it.
Okay.
They're so talented.
Okay, informal poll. All right, here we go.
Oh.
Now this one. Okay, so this is a controversial one right here.
Across the nation.
Okay, this is a poll.
It shouldn't be controversial. It should be a pretty straightforward answer.
Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks? Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks? Now, Mel,
we live in a divided household. I don't know. Do you prefer Dunkin' Donuts? I think I've changed them. I think I've got him over to the dark side, which is Starbucks. I make black French roast coffee that resembles mud. So he has no other option.
Yeah. I think so. I think I just drink Starbucks so much. I get Dunkin' Donuts every once in a while, and when I do, I don't love it.
Yes.
I've gotten their dark roast. I don't love it. I want to love it though because I love their cups, like the styrofoam ones.
I can get on board with
it's
that.
so much better. Like I don't want to sleep. Get this sleep.
But now
off
they're
my cup.
Dunkin', which is dumb Dunkin'.
Well, that's a whole nother issue. But we're talking about. Here's the thing, though. Well, okay, so you say Starbucks.
But I do like Dunkin' Donuts getting their coffee with hot chocolate mixed inside. That's one of my favorite things. Because then you can't taste their coffee. No, I love Starbucks because I can always bank on the fact that their coffee is good. I said it. It's across the board. I don't care what country I'm going to. It's dark. It's luscious. It's delicious. It's tastes a little burnt, and I like that, quite frankly. So,
all right, here we go.
And if I can't get a tall dark roast. Or if their dark roast is a medium roast, which that's super dumb. So 1 point less for Starbucks. I get a triple tall Americano with extra room. So.
All right, here we're putting up a poll, a live poll.
Poll is a funny word. Poll.
Poll, right?
Kind of annoying.
We're putting up a live poll here. This is a live poll, okay? Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. All right, we want to get your votes. Okay,
in.
Please vote in Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. We're going to leave this open for the next couple minutes. Weigh in. Give us some feedback here. Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. We, I guess, are a Starbucks family, but I could be swayed to the Dunkin' side.
Families who Starbucks together stay together. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Right now it's 1-0. Okay.
Hey, I like that 100%
One vote
line.
for Starbucks. Let's keep it going here. I want some more Dunkin' here. Yeah. No, here's the thing I love about Dunkin' Donuts is that you can get donuts along with your coffee.
Can you get donuts anymore since they're only Dunkin'?
You can get Dunkin' Donuts.
I'm confused now by
Dunkin'.
their new name.
Yeah.
But if I go to Starbucks, I can get a donut, a croissant, I can get a muffin, I can get a sandwich, I can get a Sammy. I can get 5 different egg sandwiches, some with reduced fat bacon. Does it get any better than that?
We have 2 votes. All right, it's 2-0 Starbucks.
Come on, somebody.
Where are my Dunkin' lovers out there? Any Dunkin' lovers? No one? No one is a Dunkin' lover.
Why do you think Dunkin's rebranding? They're trying to get followers.
Now, here's the trick, too. If you don't live in the Northeast or if you don't live in America, then you might have a difficult time with, this is skewed. Probably, I'm sorry, if you're watching this and you don't have access to either one of those, I couldn't imagine you would live. That's how ignorant we are. I couldn't imagine there's a place where there's no Starbucks. No, there's plenty of places like that. But all right, so far we got, what do we got an update here? 3 votes for Starbucks. We have no Dunkin' Donuts. I just feel bad for Dunkin'. We're gonna leave this poll up for
I don't feel bad for them at all. It's their own fault. All right. Can we talk more while we're waiting for the polls to come in?
We can.
All right. I've got a question for you. Okay. So what was your first missions trip like? And how did that affect your call to missions?
We got 4 votes.
Yes.
4 votes for Starbucks. Poll's going to close at 9:10. 2 minutes, people. All right. My first mission experience was I went to Mexico. So I was in junior high and I went to a Christian school. And at Christian school, they announced this trip in school for anyone who wanted to. Obviously, it cost money and you had to raise it. But it was a trip with an organization called Youth with a Mission, YWAM. And they were taking a trip to Monterrey, Mexico. And, I think we had to apply, but basically, if we got the money together, we were able to go. And so it was funny. Like, I'd never been on a mission trip in my life. I grew up in church and heard missionaries, I guess. I don't really remember them. But as soon as they announced that trip, I was like, yeah, like, I'm going on that trip. It was like, I had no money. I had no way of getting money. My parents didn't have money. So as soon as I told my parents.
They were a really Christian family.
As soon as I told my family. Extremely Christian. As soon as I told my family, they were like, "Oh, this is great. Let's start the letter writing campaign." And so they said, "All right, you got to go write a letter now." Oh, we have some Dunkins.
Oh, come on.
Who are you? We have 5 votes.
Reveal
for Starbucks
yourself, Dunkin' Donuts.
And 1 for Dunkin' Donuts. Thank you, Dunkin' Donuts.
If you don't reveal who you are, then you have shame behind your answer and it doesn't count.
It is 9:10. The poll is closed and ding, ding, ding. Starbucks has won 5-1. Thank you for voting, everyone who voted. We appreciate that. And very, very interesting. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I took this trip and my family supported me. I had aunts and uncles and different ones give $100, give whatever. And I was able to go on the trip. And on that trip, God really touched my life in a powerful way. and kind of never looked back from there.
Cool.
What was your first mission experience?
My first missions trip was to Mexico, oddly enough. Was it?
I thought it was Ecuador.
No, it wasn't my first one. Mexico with my dad. I was like 13, I think, and I went with my dad. Yeah, it was awesome. Like I said, I'd always wanted to do missions. And so then I finally got to go. And so when I was 13 on my first missions trip, we had a rule in our house that before you graduated high school, you had to go on one missions trip. My parents didn't think that was good enough, obviously, because when I was 16, they moved to the mission field. They thought I needed a little bit more than a trip or two. So when I was 16, my older brother and sister were already in college, and my parents left with me. And we went to Costa Rica for a year. And then actually my parents were missionaries to Mexico for about 10 years. They're back now doing stateside missions. But so I got to experience my senior year in Mexico City where I graduated. And so to me, that is like my biggest missions experience of all. And yeah, it was awesome. But I got to be very, very honest. I never thought I would be back to Mexico. It was one of those, I loved it. I cherished Mexico. I went to visit my parents like 2 to 3 times a year. Never wanted to go back as a missionary, though. I thought I'd land somewhere in the Philippines or Rwanda because I'd taken a mission trip there, and it really, moved my heart a bunch. But God, again, had other plans. And so throughout time, when he was calling Noah to Mexico, tell a little bit about that after you got back from your mission trip.
Yeah, so it was, I had a great time in Mexico. I was 13 years old. My first mission trip, we were in Monterrey, and we went to some of the very poor parts. We did door-to-door evangelism with a translator.
When you got back, though, too.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And all things like this. And so, but, it was a great trip, met God in a powerful way. When I came back later that year, I was 13, I was praying at the altar at the end of a service. And we were praying, and there was a bunch of people just up front, and there was no specific altar call. It was just spending time with God. And so my mom was going around praying for people, and she came to me and she said, "No, I really feel like you should ask the Lord what he wants you to do with your life." And I never asked that question, never thought about it. And I really didn't have an idea. Even when she said that, I didn't have an idea, but I knelt down to pray and I said, "Okay, God, what do you want me to do with my life?" And it was like immediately what came up, the only thing that was there was missionary to Mexico. And I'm sure I heard that and stuff, but I never thought about being missionary to Mexico, anything like that. And so it was powerful. And for me, that was it. That was the turning point. And it's been a journey from there. I'm 32 now. I was 13 then. And almost 20 years, and we haven't been on the field yet, taking lots of short-term trips, and we're on our way. We're headed there. But, yeah, it's been a journey, but that was the point that also, God brought me back to that point. Years later, God brought me back to that point and said, "Hey, are you obeying me here?"
Yeah, well, Noah puts it in a really cool way a lot of times, is that he kind of took the call that God gave him as missions, but I'll leave the Mexico part just because not necessarily on purpose, like he didn't want to go to Mexico. But I think as the years passed, it was kind of like, well, maybe Mexico was just because I was young or whatever. And so God, it was really cool. He was on a walk one night, and so we were youth pastoring. So when we first got married, we were going to go to Albania as missionary associates. We both gotten approved, but we clearly felt the Lord say it wasn't time. So we shut that door, and finding ourselves again in a place of frustration, like, oh my gosh, all we want to do is go on the mission field, and you keep shutting the door. But then God led us to be youth pastors in Point Pleasant, New Jersey for 3 years. And it was during that time there that he renewed the call. So while we were there, Noah went for a walk one night after we had a missions team meeting, and both of our hearts were just kind of burning. And on that walk, the Lord reminded him, like, hey, when I called you to Mexico, that wasn't like a suggestion. That's what I was telling you to do. And now it's time to pursue that. And so he came in, he busted through the door. I was watching Gilmore Girls, I'm pretty sure, just chilling on the couch. And he comes in and he's like, "Babe, we have to go to Mexico." And I'm like, okay. So I turned off the TV, we talked, but it was really cool because, like I had mentioned, my heart hadn't really been for Mexico. But in that moment, like literally something changed, and we both just kind of started like crying, tearing, praying, just talking and dreaming, and just this level of excitement built. And then as we talked to the leadership and got approved and everything, there was just such a need for missionaries in Mexico because a lot of people think it's 100% reached, and it's not. And there's also a ton of missionaries that are just retiring or leaving the field, like God's calling them to other things. And there's just these, we think, well, there's 5 missionaries in Mexico, so the entire country should be fine. And that's like saying there's 5 churches in the US. And so what are we complaining about? There's just such a need. And so we were just honored and privileged that God called us and super excited about it. But yeah.
Yeah. And I do apologize. There's a bunch of comments that we haven't been able to see. Now we see them. So Krista and Rob Lodge joined in. Thank you guys so much. Starbucks. Okay. They always have some strong opinions. But thank you, everyone, for chiming in. And sorry about that.
Oh my gosh, we missed like a ton. They literally didn't come in.
Yeah, they didn't come in for whatever reason. So I don't know why, but it's great to see that.
See Diane?
Diane says I was 32 when I first went as a missionary.
That's awesome.
That is incredible.
The golden year.
Yeah.
We're both 32. Jesus.
There we go. Well, anyway, we're going to close pretty soon here. But I did want to tell you that, great question. Thank you. Carolyn asked, do you speak Spanish fluently? I'll answer that in just a second. But what I want to say is that we do Coffee with a Missionary on the first and third Thursdays of every month. So this coming on the third Thursday, it's going to be December 20th. We're going to be talking with Brian and Raquel Correa. They are in Colombia. And also they're going to have another missionary, Denicia Ruffin, who's from Honduras, with them. So that's going to be really cool, talking with them. But we've been doing this since March. So we have a number of videos. And if you want to watch little clips, or if you want to watch the whole conversation, you can find them on the LAC World Missions page under videos. But you can also go to our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel. It's LAC World Missions, and there's a playlist called Coffee with a Missionary. And we have little 1-minute clips. We have 3-minute clips. We have the full conversation. You can go back and watch every single one. We've talked with people all over Latin America and the Caribbean. Awesome people. Also, if you just like to listen, so maybe that LAC does these live videos and you miss the live video for whatever, or you don't have time to watch it for 45 minutes, an hour. If you're a podcast person and you have iTunes, you can subscribe to the Coffee with a Missionary podcast. And every time we have a new one, like this one, in the next week, this one will be up and you can listen to the audio and connect that way. So there's lots of different ways to get in that. So we have some wonderful questions here. Carolyn says, do you speak Spanish fluently? No, we don't. And so part of that is our first step once we are approved to leave and both adoptions are complete, is we're going to be going to Costa Rica, to Cincel, which is a language school where missionaries are sent. And we'll be there for almost a year. Yeah. We both speak Spanish fairly well.
Yeah, but nowhere near fluent. It's still a struggle. I used to speak it a lot better than I do now. It's just been a long time since living there. So, but the nice thing is that we both are going with a crazy good foundation. So we'll just be able to build on that and hopefully flourish.
Yeah, and it's really, the best, anyone learning a language, what they'll tell you is the best way to learn it is to be fully immersed. Yeah. And so, there's maybe more economical ways to do it, this and that. Everyone has their opinion. But Cincel is just an awesome opportunity because you get to focus completely on language. And if God's called you to a Spanish-speaking country, you want to know Spanish to the best of your ability. And even if you're there for 2 years, you need much more than that. But you get what you can. So thank you. Also, Amanda asks, as a career missionary, do you have to go to language school? Great question. I'll stick this back up there. But thanks for your question, Amanda.
Yes.
You do, yes. If you've never been on the field before, you have to go to language school.
Yeah. So we know a couple that are actually in Mexico now. They the wife is Mexican and is from Mexico, knows Spanish is her first language. He was pretty good. I mean, I feel like he probably would have been fine, but even they need to go to language school for, I think, 3 months. And what they say is even if you're pretty fluent, they still want you to go to, read literature to just kind of get some more cultural experience, just things like that. So they really do encourage you kind of, and not make you in a bad way, but yeah, they make you go as no matter what kind of missionary you are to language school, I think, unless you're a maps worker. But a missionary associates and career missionaries, all their first stop is language school for Latin America.
And different
Caribbean.
lengths if you're a career missionary, you're going to be going there for a year.
Yeah.
And it's, you have to view it as so necessary. I mean, it takes lifetimes to be fluent. Ask any missionary who is on the field and been on the field. It takes a long time. So 1 year at language school isn't going to solve a problem, but that gives you a foundation for ministry.
Yeah. So Diane says, no such thing in my part of the world, but still need to learn it. No such thing, Diane, as the language school, or is that what I want to make sure we hit that comment? And
Diane is in Micronesia, which is not a part of, I don't believe is a part of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Amanda says, as a maps worker, I don't have to go, so I'm learning on my own. It's so hard. Yes, we know learning on your own is difficult. The nice thing is that you're actually in the country, so that'll help. And Diane says, so Diane doesn't have language school in her. Now, Carolyn asks us here, do you think your focus in Mexico will be youth ministry? Interesting question.
Yeah.
Our focus really is going to be pastoral training. And that may sound funny because it's like, okay, you've never been a pastor or whatever. Maybe I should say Bible training, specifically among indigenous groups. So with the indigenous groups, they don't have access to the level that probably the average person has access to a Bible school and preparation for ministry. And so not so much like we have the answers and we're coming to you to teach you, but facilitating Mexican qualified teachers who can bring access to education. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on. Mel is going to be working with kids and families, really, not so much like children's ministry, like let's put on a program.
But it's been cool. Our time here in the States, with our eyes being open to foster care, which I really didn't know about too much before, is just God has put this burden in my heart to continue doing that. It's actually really cool because we were interviewing some missionaries a few weeks ago. My goodness, I forgot.
But what were they?
But yeah, but they had the husband had mentioned this, and they were just saying that they were actually youth pastors, and they felt like the
Kenny
Lord,
and Lacey Horton.
Thank you.
Kenny and Lacey Horton, they're in Guatemala.
Yeah, my names are never good. But that before, like, they had felt this missions call, but they were youth pastoring, and they just felt the call like really, really strong to go in the mission field, but that the call to stop youth pastoring didn't go anywhere. And they kind of expected that to fade as they pursued this next step that God was giving them. And, they just said it was really cool because God really kind of confirmed, but basically when they got to Guatemala, they did a lot of youth ministry. Their main goal is youth ministry. But their main point was just that, like, God isn't necessarily confined by one call, that a lot of the stuff that the Lord is doing in you now doesn't need to go anywhere in order for him to take you somewhere else. And so that's something that I've kind of struggled with over the last 2 years, like with my heart really being burdened for doing foster care, for still working with not adoption families, but with broken families, and just wanting to show Jesus to them, that in Mexico, I know that's going to carry over and God's going to use us there to still minister in that way. So I have no idea what that's going to look like, but that's going to be my focus.
And Carolyn says conversational Spanish or Bible and theology Spanish. From my understanding at Sincel, it's they give you grammar, they give you conversational, a lot of go out in the market and do these different things. So the focus there isn't specifically Bible and theology Spanish. I would say, as of right now, my strongest is Bible and theology Spanish, because I'm reading books in theology books in Spanish. I'm reading the Bible in Spanish, so that's my strongest. But at Sincel, our main focus will be conversational. Thank you, Carolyn, for that comment. Such amazing purpose. Amanda says, will you guys be getting Speed the Light vehicle? Of course. Speed the Light is awesome.
We've been approved for one when we get on the field. So we're super grateful and excited.
Yes, we are. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time just to listen and get to know us a little better.
Thanks for your questions.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your support and prayers. And we love this medium, this ability to connect you as viewers, as supporters of missions, or wherever you are in the, fellow missionaries, all of that, connecting us together, even though we're not physically in the same place, and just providing a place for interaction and a place for, a way to, it's not just like, hey, I watched this video and they presented material one way, but it's interaction, asking questions. What's this real life like? And thank you for all your comments. And Diane, thank you so much, Diane Laws, for tuning in and watching. Asia Pacific, yes, awesome. We love all AGW missionaries from around the world. Thank you so much. And Roy Cruz, Carolyn, and all you guys who have been watching. Mike Hattinger, thank you so much for the comments and encouragement. We love you guys. And please don't forget December 20th, right before Christmas. Brian and Raquel, Korea, Colombia.
And they're awesome. We know them really well. They're from New Jersey. They're really good friends of ours. They are young. They are on fire. And they are feisty
really
New Jersey people.
Really exciting what God is moving them to in Colombia. Really, really exciting. So God bless you all, and have a good night. We'll see you next time.
Bye.